Alrighty, let's begin this mess. So, okay, so now, warning, this tutorial is definitely for wizards only because it's going to get a little bit complicated, but, if we break it down, it won't be so bad. Okay, so now this drawing here is basically, well, it's a few new things like every drawing has been, and a lot of old things. And one of the things I really like about this drawing is that it's a good bridge into really what's coming next. And that's, we've spent a lot of time learning how to draw, but next we really have to look at, well, what do we draw and why, right? And so this, for instance, in this one, I tried to convey a little bit more drama, a little bit more meaning. It's in a classic sense like a still life, what they call a vanitas, which is talking about the vanity of life. How fleeting is life, and we go from the images of childhood with the classic sort of Jack in the Box and the burning candle, the daisies that also have their connotations, and going from a very vigorous young daisy to sort of a middle-aged daisy to, well, a wilted daisy. Some of us are closer to getting there than others, but in any case, let's dive right in and take a look at how this was done. I'm going to take it piece by piece in this one because it can be rather complicated. But first, I'd say let's take a look at something. All right. We're using two-point perspective, and we're going to make the box. That's the first thing that we're going to do. And so the box is actually a cube, and we haven't made an actual cube in two-point perspective yet. So here we go. Okay, well, if you remember, in one-point perspective, it was pretty easy to make a cube. Okay, I've got my horizon line, right? And I've got a vanishing point. And at anywhere along the line, I can say like, well, I'm going to just have the edge of a square, right? So right here, here's my edge of a square. And of course, I'm going to go back to the vanishing point right here, right? So here I've got it on my vanishing point. And draw those edges back. Drawing nice and dark, so that you guys can see it, but, if I was doing a drawing, I would never draw this dark. But in any case, I've got that going back to the vanishing point. Now I just need to know, well, how far back does this edge go, right? Does the back edge go? And that's an easy one. We've talked about field of view. And so we can go to the edge of our field of view, right? Connect it to this corner here, right? And then that would be where this intersects. That's how I know how far to go. And I get a very nice square that way. Very, very believable square in perspective. To turn it into a cube, well, that's pretty easy. I'm going to draw a square. I've just drawn one over here on the side. No problem. Just the same length as this one. So I can go back to the vanishing point here. And here's the back right here. Same level. Same level. I know it is. Heck, I can prove it just by going back to the same vanishing point over here at my field of view, coming down, and you'll see it intersects. So it's right. And when things are pretty close to lining up, then they're right. All right, so if this is this length here, all I had to do was measure it and say, like, okay, here it is. That's how long it is. And just go up that high. And the same thing on the other side. And go across. Back to my vanishing point. And at this corner here, of course, I'll go up and down and thus completing my cube, as you can see right there. And that was a nice little cube in perspective. Okay. So to do the same thing in two-point perspective is using a lot of the same ideas. In some ways, it's even easier. Now, this looks a little bit complicated. That's just because I've got all my guidelines already drawn out. I'll darken them in. Okay, so first off, let's start with our horizon line. Something like that there. It's rather arbitrary where I put that in. Okay, and so here's my center. And this is pretty much of a measured center. I did that on purpose because I really wanted to make a point. Okay, and I'm going to come down. This was also measured. Right? So it's really very straight. And then here, I'll go back to my vanishing point. Right? And here to my vanishing point. And here, now look at this. If I go from here, and it doesn't matter, you know, this could be anywhere along this line, and I draw a horizontal line parallel to the horizon line, which in this case is parallel to the edge of my paper, right? Just like so. I know that point is going to be correct, that has to be a square, right? And it will work anywhere on the page. I'll show you why in just a second. Okay, but let's take a look. Right? So if we go like this, from this point back, and from this point back, vanishing point. Okay, you can see that this intersection lines up with this, which lines up with this, right? So we know that that is a correct square right there. It has to be. It has to be. In the same way that this one here would align. We already established that this was a square, right? And if we went through here, see, it would have to be a square. It would have to be. And that's how we, that's the logic there. It would have to be since it lines up. Now, you know that it doesn't have to be directly in front of you. So let's draw a square over here to the side. So I've just picked an arbitrary point right here. Made it a little bit smaller than the first one, just because that way they both fit on the page easily. And I'm going to go back to the vanishing point. Okay. Now, on the other side, I'll also go back to the vanishing point. Okay. If I draw this horizontally over, right, from here to here, or from here to here, doesn't matter, but as long as that is straight, where that point and that point is, then that's where that square has got to be in this simple two-point perspective. And here, we can prove it. If we were to go back, right, and we would go this way to our vanishing point, okay, there's our square. We think it is, at least. Watch this. If we had this here, we lined it up with our vanishing point here, look where it dissected. Okay, came here through the middle and boom, right to this corner. See? Everything lined up. If it's a square, everything's going to line up just like that. Okay, so that's the square. So if you've got a square, you can now make a cube, right? Okay. So you would think that a cube would just be this distance here, and then bring it on up, draw a diagonal, and that's where your cube would be. But it doesn't work out. And I'm not sure exactly on the math of why it doesn't work out, but it doesn't. Here's what you got to do instead. Okay, you ready? So here's my center vanishing point, right? Here's the edge of my paper. I'm going to take that and make a measurement. That's the measurement from my vanishing point in the center, the edge of my field of view, right? And if I use field of view and field of vision interchangeably, I mean the same thing. Okay. So watch this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring it up here. So maybe you'd have a second piece of paper or something. Probably a good idea. But here, just for today, I'm going to draw a little bit on the drawing board. Well, you know, wait a minute. I shouldn't be sharing bad habits with you. Let's do it for real. I've got a second piece of paper. Okay. I'm going to just line that up. This is how I would do it anyways. It's getting lazy. Okay, so I've got that lined up with the edge, nice and straight. Got my measurement right here. I'll bring that up, and I'm going to make a mark on the paper, right? Now, if I go between here and here, diagonally, I know this is kind of a crazy measurement. I don't know why it works exactly. Ask the math teacher about it maybe, but I do know it does work. Now this length here is longer than our first length, isn't it? And if I take that length and I come all the way from our horizon line all the way up to that new point that we just made, all right, up here, and I intersect with my bottom corner down here. Oh, let's bring this into the field of view here. Okay. I'm going to be using this whole thing. Okay. Here's our corner, right? Way down here. And here's our thing way up here. You can't hardly see it. But trust me, it's up there, right? The little dot that we made is way up there. Okay. And I line these things up. Right? From the one all the way up to that one way up there, right? Where that line intersects with this edge right here. If I bring this up, see, that's how high it will be, where those points intersect. That's your cube. Okay, so now it's just a matter of going back to my vanishing points this way. And here's one this way. Another vertical. Back to my vanishing point this way. Okay, and another vertical. And you see, this is my cube. Okay, makes sense? Okay, here's this one over here. We'll just do that real quick. And so, once again, we've got that same measurement, really, as before. Just make sure everything's lined up good. Okay, so I've got this, and I've got, this was where the measurement was all the way to here. Right, so I'm going to make a point way up here. And then I'm going to go all the way from the point that I've got way up there off camera and all the way down to the corner of the box. Okay. And so once again, where that line intersects the up and down, that is my cube. Right? So to my vanishing point, here, and here, and here. Now this cube is going to look smaller. Well, it was a smaller cube. And it's going to look a little bit broader on this one side here, and a little bit sort of narrower here, but, well, of course it is, because it's turned. It's turned. Alrighty. There, so you can really see it. So yeah, so there's one cube, there's the other cube, both in perspective, 2-point perspective. And that's how I get this jack-in-the-box box right here. Okay. So let's do that real quick, and then we'll end this part of the tutorial, moving on to the next things. Okay, so once again, on this one, you know, I've extended my vanishing points. Remember that 2-to-1 ratio like we did on the books? Same thing. How did I get that? Once again, I just took, and here is the one vanishing point all the way over here. Here's the center. Here's another piece of paper, right over here, from the center to here. So in other words, 2 pieces of paper, that's my vanishing point, right? So it's twice as wide as it is tall. Okay. So anyway, so there's my vanishing points, a little bit extended. And so, you know, I've just got my cube sort of sketched out here a little bit, working off my cheat, as you know. So I'm just going to take this corner back to the vanishing point right over here. Right? And I'll take this corner back to the vanishing point. And I know that if I keep this horizontal, then this is going to be a square. You know, with something like this, I might measure. I might say like, okay, here's how tall this is here relative to the edge of my page. Here's how tall it is here relative to the edge of the page. That way I make sure that it's really precise. Because, you know, back in the very first things that we were doing, it was not a big deal to not be, you know, super precise. And when I was originally laying this out, I don't know if I showed this to you already, but, you know, definitely not super precise. There was the first sort of machinations of it, the first idea of the jack-in-the-box. Here's where it kind of started to come to fruition, where I was just, you know, roughly sketching it out. Okay. And yeah, these aren't exact, right? But then, you know, once I get down to it to make my finished drawing, yeah, I want that to be pretty good. Anyways, so that's going back, that's measured, that's across. And so, just like before, if I go straight up, right, and straight up, and straight up, but how tall is it exactly? Well, you know, just like before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that point that goes between my vanishing point and the edge of my paper, right? I'm going to mark that. I'm going to go up, right? So there's this one, good marks, we can see it. I'm going to go up. And this time I kind of have it more secured down. See if you can see it there. There's that original mark right here, in line with the edge, right? So then from there, all the way back down to my central vanishing point, which is down here, right? I'll make a mark. I believe I have that one right. No, I guess I don't. Let's get on a different ruler. Okay, so anyways, so I'll make my mark. That's how long it needs to be. All that length right there. So I'll go up from my vanishing point. Whoa, and you can see all the way up here. That's where I've got it. You see, I've got this a little bit more planned out. Got my paper there already. And so I'm going to go from all the way up there to this corner, and where this dissects this, I'll know that's how tall it needs to be, right? Now, if you've got some, obviously this is taller than this ruler. That's why I love these paper rulers, right? Because you can just take it, fold two of them up, put one inside the other, and make an extension. Why not? Okay, so I'm lining this way down here. What's the mark that I've got way up there? Get those two things lined up. Right there. And yes, and right here. Okay, and that is where that intersected, so I know that's how tall it is. And the rest, is just what I was doing before. That is top. We're here to the vanishing point. Here's the top. Okay, so there's my cube for the Jack-in-the-Box. Now, I'm going to be drawing a lid on the Jack-in-the-Box, right? So I might draw through so that I can see where the edge of that is going to be, right? Okay. But I'll show you how to make the lid in the next tutorial.